Hello and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. I'm super honored that you're here. And I say that every time, but every time I mean it. If you took time out to listen to the stuff that I, or in this case, we are saying, we're all really grateful for you being here. So thank you so much. I am proud and pleased to welcome my co-hosts for the evening, Alan Fessenden, Megan Vasilis, and Sergio Giovanni. We're all four going to be talking about week 6 of Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. And as Megan said just before we started recording, we all have a lot of thoughts on this chapter. So first of all, welcome to you if you're listening to the show. And Alan, Sergio, Megan, welcome to you too.
Thank you, Isolde. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait.
This is going to be an interesting chapter. It made me go a lot of times as I was reading it. And I went through it. This is the third time I've gone through it, and I think I got more angry this time. And I wonder if she sits back, Julia Cameron, and goes, these people are going to be so pissed off during this book. And she expects it. You know, she expects us to all be really ticked off. Maybe she does. I don't know. So let's talk a little bit about how the week went before we get into the tasks and all of that. Let's do a check-in before we start talking about recovering or rediscovering your sense of abundance. How are you all doing? Alan, why don't you go first? What was your week like, and did you get to the tasks? Did you do the morning pages, the artist state? What happened? Do tell.
Oh my gosh. Oh, my week. I feel like I sort of blocked out The Artist's Way for like a big portion of it. Even though I was thinking about it, I was just kind of like, I can't do these tasks. I have to wait for that right moment. I don't know. I was like waiting for inspiration. So today I was like, what are the tasks?
Oops.
But I read the book early actually, and I think sometimes when I do read the book right away, then I'm like, well, I read it. I'll get back to it in a second, and then it takes me a little longer. But I did do my morning pages, and I sort of did a makeshift artist date, which was kind of like a full day affair because I got my hair cut, and I was like, I got this place I go to out in Williamsburg, and I'm like, oh, I like getting my hair cut here. I'm going to make this my artist date. So afterwards, I went and got lunch at Champ's Diner and had a delicious, amazing vegan parm sandwich.
Ooh, yum.
It's so good. I was like, I was like reading it, I was like, they have vodka sauce, and I was like, I think I like vodka sauce, and I had like a ricotta cheese, and it was so good. I was like, absolutely, I do love vodka sauce. I just never, sometimes I'll eat it and I just won't appreciate it because I'm just like, all the noodles and everything else is too good. I'm like, oh no, this is really good. And that was nice. And then I went to my favorite vegan donut shop in New York right now, which is Dunwell Donuts, and I got only 2 donuts, which was a artist date thing because I'll always like buy extra donuts just to have them around, like that. And then I took the rest of the day to myself, and I think I did something else, but that was the gist of it. And I just had a nice day to myself. And then the thing that got me was like, oh, you're supposed to do the counting is what she talks about later, and keeping track. And I was like, I was so resistant to this idea. I was like, I'll do it, but I know it's just going to be mostly all food. And I didn't really do it, but I know it was mostly all food.
I hear you.
Still. So yeah, that was my week, and I probably had a couple insights here and there. I think I had a really good therapy session where I was like, I think this is linked to this, and this is linked to that. Can you believe it? And she's like, absolutely. Good job.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Thank you. But yeah, maybe that'll come up later or not. But I'll pass it on to Sergio. How was your week?
Thank you for asking, Alan, and thank you, Isolde and Megan, and all the listeners for joining us this week. First, I just want to say that vegan parm and donuts sound like such a rad combo. I am so jealous of that artist date, and yeah, I'm glad that you were able to enjoy it and just really relax afterwards and take that time to yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
So this was a really busy week for me as well. And it's funny, Alan, that you say that because I feel like The Artist Way definitely did not get enough attention this week from me, unfortunately. So with that being said, I did not do all of my morning pages this week. I did 5 out of 7 actually, and I feel awful.
Yay! No, don't feel awful. Feel good. You did five
Thank
out of
you.
seven.
That's awesome. See, just talking to you for 2 minutes has totally changed how I feel about that. This is why we do this, right? Um,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
yeah, so I only did 5 out of 7. I'm gonna try and make it a point to do all 7 this following week though. And I will say that the last time I wrote, um, which was earlier today, it felt good to write, and I almost went past the 3 pages. I almost went to the 4th page. So I guess I missed my journal, and perhaps it missed me too. So yeah, for this week, as far as my artist date went, um, yeah, it was a really busy week. So this week I decided to go for a walk on a trail right by my house. It's this beautiful trail that I love, and the weather was nice for a few days here in New York. So I took advantage on one of those days, and I walked on the trail with my headphones on, and did some walking meditation, which is always very therapeutic for me. And yeah, that was really enjoyable.
Nice.
Megan, how about you? Were you able to get through your morning pages, and were you able to have an artist date?
I also did abysmally with my morning pages this week.
Uh-oh.
I did 4.5 days.
Hey.
And really it was just because I'm kind of in the middle of like a transition right now. So I had more on my plate than I was really expecting to have, but I felt really bad about it. Like I should have made time no matter what, because that was the commitment I made. But I did notice that the days I didn't do it, something definitely felt like it was missing. Like I didn't have that processing time at the beginning of the day. And I've really gotten used to having that. So I think I can say now that even though I missed several days, I've definitely established the habit, and I miss it when I don't do it. And for an artist date, also because I was busy, I didn't set aside the time for like a single artist date, but I did on Saturday. I went for a really long walk down an avenue in New York that I haven't really explored before, so that was really fun. And I ran into this like really weird little courtyard with all of these like wintry flowers spread out. It was really weird. You know how sometimes when you're in Manhattan, you will just be walking down a street that you think you know, and then you'll turn around and something totally like creative and bizarre and weird will just suddenly be there. It was one of those moments. So it was actually a really cool kind of spontaneous thing that I discovered. And then yesterday I was there's this like certain granola recipe I make pretty much every week just as like a healthy snack to have around. And I just thought, you know what would happen if I just put chocolate in it? So I did that. I doctored up this recipe. I made it all like
Yum.
Valentine's themed. I put like cocoa powder in it to make it more chocolatey. I added more chocolate chips than I usually do. And I just got really creative with this recipe that I normally just kind of make by default. I don't even think about it. And it was so much fun. And it did kind of get me a little bit out of my comfort zone. And so that was like, not like, I kind of wish I had set aside the time to have more substantial date, but that was what I got to this week.
No, that sounds cool. I like it almost feels that go bake something task.
Yeah, that's
of
true.
hers that she put in there.
Yeah, totally.
So
And I think that it's honestly, it's one of those things, yes, we made a commitment. We're going to go to our artist. Life gets in the way of art, to quote my Aikido teacher. Life gets in the way of art. If things are happening and you need to deal with those things, it's much better to deal with those things if that's what's calling you, than to keep doing your artist date, but then the pot boils over and your stove is a mess, right? So there's a little bit of that kind of, hey, let's cut ourselves some slack. It's A-okay because it's 12 weeks, and if you do like 6 or 7 artists date during that 12-week process, then you're doing really well. So
absolutely,
that's my.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for it.
Oh no, I was just saying. I think that's what I really loved about this process, and I think like. I keep forgetting that we have listeners. So hi, listeners, and because I just get enamored with you guys. I'm like, oh, it's just me and my friends.
Shout out, listeners.
So is every listener. If you're listening to this, you're our friend too.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Absolutely.
And what I love about this process is it's made me have to like just keep going and not get lost in judging myself for all the things I haven't done, and like every little task that I didn't do. And the first time I tried to do it last summer or whatever, I was like, oh, I didn't do all 10 of the task. I can't move forward. I have to like extend it, and it got me so much pressure. And this is just moving like. This feels more like a class where we just have to keep bundling through and keep going. And I really like that aspect of it. And I hope like it relieves some of the guilt and grief that our artists and the listening audience feel after not getting something done or something like that. And for us as too, it's just like I'm always impressed with how much you guys get done. And then I hear you complain. It's like, guys, you're doing all right. You're doing all right.
Thank you.
Thank you for that validation. I appreciate that.
That's lovely. And I think that's the thing. I think one of the reasons artists work in groups sometimes or have cohorts or things like that is because if you're an artist, you're breathing rarefied air in some ways because you're striving to make something out of nothing. And that can mean that you're out on the precipice. You're standing in front of the precipice sometimes and you don't know which way to go. And it helps to have someone in your corner going, you're going to be okay. Even if you didn't do all of it, you're going to be okay. And I'm never satisfied with what I have achieved. I'm never satisfied. And on some levels, I think that makes me hungry and keep striving. And on some levels, it's a little exhausting. So according to my husband, that's one of the things he's here to teach me in our very, very many decades relationship is how to chill, because I don't chill very well. If I don't have something to occupy my mind and my hands, I get nervous. And he is very chill. And so he is just relaxed. I have to meditate and get mindful and do all these other things in order to get to anywhere near that sense of relaxation that he has most of the time. It's very cool. So for me this week, I actually did do my morning pages, all 7 days. And, I think I may have missed half a page in there somewhere, and that's because something, I forget what happened. I had flooding and weirdness happen this week. So in my apartment, I'm not going to bore anybody with that, but it was not pleasant. Anyway, so part of the issue for me with the artist date, though, was that I keep going back to the library for my artist dates. I mean, it's not an issue in that I feel bad about it. It's more like, well, that's where I keep going to. And this time I walked around, instead of looking at the treasures exhibit, I looked at the insects exhibit. And then if you wander around the library in the different rooms, many of which are closed right now because they're having staffing shortages. But if you wander around, there's all sorts of really cool just art on the walls. I remember one time there was a Charles Addams cartoon exhibit, so you could wander around and see original Charles Addams cartoons, comics, And so there's all sorts of stuff. And so this time I walked around and I just looked at book spines. I did not really spend a lot of time in any one thing except for the insects exhibit, but just looking at book spines of books from different eras and different ages is a delight for me. So I did that. And since I'm starting to think about the cover of my Tarot Card Murders book, the mystery novel that I've written, and I'm starting to give thought to how I'm going to do the cover, I'm starting to look at spines and covers, and maybe that'll be this week's artist date, is I'll find my way to the Barnes & Noble by Union Square and spend a lot of time looking at covers of books. Maybe that'll be my artist date. That sounds really fun, actually. So what about the tasks that we set ourselves, that she set for us this week? Have you had any luck, any of you, with for example, counting what you spent your money on? That was one of the tasks that she said we should do this week, is notate what you spend your money on, in part so that you can see what you find important in part, I find some of that guilt inspiring myself. But I was wondering if any of you spent any time writing a money diary this week. Let's start with you, Megan.
I did do that actually. Well, at least in the sense that I looked at my Mint account at the end of the week to see what I spent my money on. And yeah, I'm not sure that it was all that illuminating an experience, honestly. Like I kind of, it pretty much told me things I already know. Like right now I spend a whole lot of money on groceries like everyone else in the world. And what I think the value of doing that for me was to really pay attention to how I felt while I was looking at those numbers and where all of my money was going. Like it wasn't that the information was entirely new for me. It was that I was really trying to pay attention to, well, how does this actually make me feel? And what does it say about my values right now at this point in my life? I mean, obviously like my value is food, and food's really expensive, but also, I noticed that I really don't have much of a budget for fun stuff. Like when I'm doing artist dates, I'm pretty much always choosing free things. And it's not that I don't ever have that money to spend. It's more like it does sort of speak to, I think, how I've decided to prioritize like my own fun, and that gave me like some stuff to dig into, I think.
Very cool. Sergio, how about you? Did you get a chance to do a money diary this week? And if so, how did that go?
Yeah, so I did start one later in the week, and just like Megan, it wasn't very illuminating, or it wasn't really a learning experience. I guess that's something I do already myself. I just kind of keep track of most, how I spend my money. But what it did point out for me was kind of the little things that I spend my money on, like maybe just like a snack or chips. I'm a big munchie guy, so I like to snack a lot. So I realized all those little buys kind of added up to more than I thought I was expecting. But I guess that goes back to, spending. Okay, I was spending money on food in a way, which Megan was just saying she realized was one of the bigger spends on hers. So yeah, I tried it, and I feel like, it wasn't too much of a learning experience. I don't know if it made me feel differently about much other than just the little things that I buy kind of adding up. But in the moment, they don't seem like a big deal because, it's like a couple bucks here and there. Alan, how do you feel about this? Were you able to keep a counting diary?
Well, I think I already claimed I didn't, so I shouldn't say I did.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. But you've got me thinking, because like I definitely know I spend a lot on these little treats here and there, and that just adds up, and that just sort of gave me this sort of like ominous feeling. Like I bet if I did look at that number, I would realize like I don't need all those empty calories, or like it would just be like be aware of if I really like delineated it by like I definitely bought a lot of carbs this week. I was really bread hungry apparently. I ordered pizza for myself, and then I got my friend came over, and I was like, I'll just get a half dozen bagels, and for some reason they gave me a dozen bagels. Now I'm like,
oh no,
not a dozen.
Awful. What are you gonna do about
terrible,
that?
But I froze 4 of them. I sent my friend home with 2, and then we each ate. Well, I ate 2, and she ate 1.5. And I'm gonna keep eating the bagels, honestly, but
gotta eat the bagels.
Don't want to be wasteful.
But no, this is like, yeah, this is definitely something I do keep track of my money, and I do sort of, I'm very, I look at my bank account every day to see what it's doing. But definitely money is a thing I've had an issue with, and like keeping track of it, and I think it was years before I even had a savings account, and that was like from the prodding of one of my ex-girlfriends, was like, you need to have this, and I was like, what am I gonna save? But having a savings account lets you save, and then you're like, oh, that's how that works, and then you have emergency funds when you need them. It's great. But yeah, no. So the one thing I did do is I bought a deck of cards, because I was just like picking up some groceries and at the a bodega, and then I saw these cards behind the counter, and I was like, how much are the cards? And the guy's like $4 or whatever. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna let myself buy the playing cards just because like I've always liked cards, and I don't really play board games these days, and or any type of card games. Me and my friends used to play spades in college, and it was so fun. That was we would talk about it all the time. And obviously now it's different, but I let myself buy those cards. And then I think I showed you guys earlier these Queen cards. I found that I had already a playing card set that was given to me at Christmas time. That's like a new set of cards that are neither they don't have the king and queen. They have a monarch and a duke. And I showed you this, but I was like, oh, this is exciting. I was excited when I first heard about those, and I got them. I probably haven't even said thank you to Santa Claus or my sister or whoever sent them to me. But thanks for those. Santa. And so that was like that was my little money break, I guess, or like my little, because I felt the same thing that Megan did, which is I haven't really been treating myself on anything other than food, like, and I don't have a budget, but I'm working on all of that now. So that was like my little like awareness thing to be like, okay, I can let myself have some more fun things in my life and open myself up to those possibilities. Isolde, how was your counting, and is that what we're talking about now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate this exercise. It's interesting. The thing about money is that there are some people who have a real awareness of how much they're spending and they feel guilty, or they have an awareness of how much they're spending and they feel like they're in the flow and all is okay. Some people don't have a really great awareness of money, and some people are very much, they count everything and they enjoy it. I know that I need to pay attention to money person, but I don't enjoy it. Like Rich, my husband, he loves counting money. In fact, when I was working at the Renaissance Festival doing tarot card readings, I would come back with tips, and I would give all the money to him, and he would gleefully count the 5s and the 10s and the 1s and put them all in little piles and bank face them and do all this stuff. And I was like, I'm so glad that you're willing to do that, because I despise it. And so I have this weird thing about money in that I feel like as much as possible, I want to be in flow around money. And I want to have enough to keep affording to live in New York City, of course, but I don't have a real sense of love for money. And so this whole chapter has been really weird for me, because she talks about how we need to improve our relationship with money and change our mindset. And I'm kind of going, I don't know that I want to, because I don't want to become more worried about it, but I also don't want to expect it. So it's a little weird for me. This whole chapter was a little weird. As far as counting my money, I did count it, and I went out twice this week, once to be on sushi with Rich, because I bought him his birthday present. His birthday's coming up. So I bought him a birthday present. We went to see David Byrne's American Utopia.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And so that I spent my money on that. And if you can go see it, go see it. It is incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. Wow, it'll blow you away. It blew us away. Yeah, if you love David Byrne, especially, you need to go see it. And but also then that was like, I spent the money on the tickets, but it's Broadway half off weeks, like 2-for-1 tickets. So I got the tickets cheap and all of that. And then, so I bought dinner, and then we had a friend in town who, and then I bought dinner for her because she came in and she's just changed her financial situation a lot. So I was like, okay, I'll just do it. But as far as what else I spent my money on, the only luxury item I would say that I spent my money on was that I bought an American Utopia T-shirt when we were there. I had to do it. I had to be like, and yet I can't say the only, because then I went out and I spent money on dolls. Damn it, I did. I spent money on dolls.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I'm getting into this thing where I want to have powerful women dolls around me. So I have purchased the Katherine Johnson, who, if you saw the movie Hidden Figures, it's about the woman who is the math genius who helped John Glenn come back when all his instrumentation died while he was in flight coming back from outer space. So I bought her doll, and I bought an Ella Fitzgerald doll to sort of work both sides of who I am. I bought a Frida Kahlo doll,
That's
who
dope.
is, artist and amazing. And then I bought a Fennec Sand doll, but I did not buy a Fennec Sand doll. Really, what I was buying was a Ming Na
Oh,
Wen
Fennec,
doll.
that's so rad.
So yeah, I bought one of those little bobblehead thingies, Funko or Tunko or whatever they're
Funkos.
called. I honestly I don't know what they're called, but it doesn't even matter. What matters to me is that it's Ming Na Wen, who is a badass. She's 58 years old. She is still kicking ass and taking names. She's out there, she's fighting. She's playing these, she was Melinda May in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's Fennec Sand in Boba Fett and Mandalorian. And I'm just so in awe of women who are, I'm in my 50s and I feel creaky and groany and I have to actively not feel creaky and groany, and they're out there just kicking butt, and I love that. So I bought her doll too, and I'm sort of building a little doll shrine along with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Edna Mode, and of course General Leia Organa.
Yes.
So I spent money on that, and I felt really good about it. I didn't mind that at all. But now I have to sort of get back into the flow, and that's the big thing about this whole looking at money thing is that worrying about it just causes me stress. It does not bring more money into my life. So I'm working actively on figuring out how to do flow with money and stay in it, stay in flow so that I'm not too worried, but I'm also not being spendy. I can be very spendy. I don't have that kind of relationship with money where I think, oh, I need to look at it all the time and I need to make, not because I have a lot of money or whatever, but because it's not how my brain works. Usually I leave that stuff to Rich because he loves it and I just don't. So that's kind of where I am. Let's move on. I would love to chat about are there any other tasks that you saw that you wanted to mention in the stuff that she talked about before we move on to discussing abundance in its entirety in the chapter? Anyone? Megan?
I will say I, like Ellen, went through the exercises and did as many of them as I could at the 11th hour, like yesterday. So I didn't have the chance. I think probably I need to go through and spend a little bit more time with them, honestly. But the one that actually struck me the most was when she talks about throwing away or giving away 5 pieces of clothing. And I did not do that, but I did kind of, without realizing that this was going to come up, kind of like synchronicity. I did give, I just took 2 things from my closet earlier this week that just I guess because I'm sort of in this transitional place. I looked at these things one day and I was just like, you know what? These do not speak to who I am now anymore. And I just decided to get rid of them. So that, without intending to do the task, I did that task. So I think that was really interesting as a thing that just sort of happened at this stage of the Artist's Way. Maybe I was already in that mindset, like primed to be ready to let go of some things like that.
Well, she says in the week prior, I think she's like, get rid of one outfit. You know which outfit it is.
And I did know that outfit. As soon as she, I read that in the book, I was like, yes, I know the outfit.
That's so funny. So she was, I feel like she was priming us in that way.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it is that whole notion of all of this builds, right? Supposedly it's a process of recovery, but just like a 12-step program with Alcoholics Anonymous or Gamblers Anonymous, you don't start out with step 11. You start out, by admitting, I think you admit, I don't know all the steps, I apologize, but I think you admit first that there's a higher power and you're powerless before your addiction or something like that. And then you move on to the next step and the next step. And eventually there's the step where you ask for forgiveness from whoever you have wronged as part of your addiction, and you can't ask for forgiveness until you admit you have a problem, right? So first you have to admit that there's an issue, and then you move on through all the other steps. And everything she's doing is that kind of same process. She is famously in recovery for alcoholism, so I think part of why she wrote this book the way she did was because of that. So what about you, Alan? You had mentioned that you were talking about this notion. What any of the things stand out for you, the tasks?
Oh, well, I like the the natural abundance that she spoke of, because like I think she the first two tasks are like, or the first one is just like go find some pretty or interesting rocks. And so I was like, oh, what are they? I was like, I think I sort of put them off because they're like, they weren't all writing exercises or writing things down. So I was like, oh, I'll get the chance to do this later. And so I just today went out and I was like, God damn it, rocks. Where am I going to find rocks? And then like on the street around some trees are just like some rocks. And I was like, are any of these going to be interesting? And I looked and I was like, well, that one's kind of speaking to me. And like, that one's interesting. You know, they're not the most beautiful rocks, but they'll do. They'll be. So I ended up grabbing 3 rocks and I got a cup of coffee. I came back out and I was like, let me just check this other pile of, this other little well of rocks. And I was like, grab 2 more. And I was like, got it. I got my 5 rocks, abundance. And, but I thought that's so interesting. The other one is like leaves or flowers. And I didn't get to do that, which I could have, but I'm less drawn to leaves and flowers. Or not true. I don't know. Whatever. I didn't do it.
It's okay.
I didn't do that part. But
I didn't do it either.
I didn't do it. All right. But I thought that was interesting because like there is a sort of this feeling that if we run out of money, we're just going to die. Or like, I don't know. Like maybe that's my feeling. If we just, we can't afford a place. Like, but there's like natural, like we came into this world without money. There wasn't money on the table when humans started doing what they did. Like we've created this thing and it's like, people are like, oh my God, Bitcoin's not real. Cryptocurrency is all fake. It's like, it's just what people decide to value. And if we all agree that it has value, it can go up. And if more people agree it has value and there's limited supply of it, then it has more value. But we're sort of teaching each other, or this is felt like it was teaching us, like, there's abundance everywhere. You don't have to like go the traditional routes to create wealth or something like that. So that was interesting to me. And then I definitely felt the feeling of change in the environment because last week I have like my hoodie hooks and I raised them so that they're not like all touching the ground, and it made me feel way better about my hoodies. And I've just been doing little adjustments to the space, to my room and my apartment, trying to get me more availability of work energy, and I've been trying to figure out where my shrine is going to go, my little space of stuff like that. So that's what I've been thinking about in this on these tasks, I think. And then I realized how few cars and specific dogs, trees, and other things I know the names of, because she was like, what are your favorite trees? And I was like, I'm going to name every tree I can think of, and then that's going to be the 4 for me. All right. Megan or Sergio, did you talk about this? Was there anything else you wanted to talk about regarding these tasks? Or?
Yeah, I just wanted to say first, I like that you mentioned how there are other ways to make income that aren't, the traditional ways to do that. And I think objectively speaking, Bitcoin specifically is definitely a good example of that. At least right now where that stands. And also, as far as you emphasizing that you did not do the leaves, that you did not pick up any leaves or flowers, for that, I'd like to emphasize that that's okay because I did pick up some leaves and flowers.
Yeah.
But I didn't pick up any rocks. You know why, Alan? Because that's what you were doing. And so we covered that together.
Nice.
See, collaboration. I love it.
Very poetic.
So yeah, I did that on my artist date on the trail because it was a perfect place to find some leaves and or flowers. So that was one of the tasks that I did and that I enjoyed. And also task number 2, which Megan was talking about earlier, was another one. So for a while now, every maybe 6 to 8 months here, maybe once a year at least, I try to make a bag of clothes to donate. So that's just something I do anyway, but I haven't done it in a while. So yeah, the throw out or give away 5 ratty pieces of clothing. I started collecting a bag. I haven't donated it yet, but I do have a bag that I started collecting of clothes. And I thought it was weird. I don't know if anyone on the crew thought it was weird that she wrote 5 ratty pieces of clothing. Why did they have to be ratty pieces of clothing?
She might have been speaking to me. I don't know. I definitely threw out a shirt either this week or last week that was from a Kraftwerk concert that my brother took me to in at the Hollywood Bowl when I had moved out there. And it was like the first time I'd gone to a concert with my brother as like adults, in a while. And he bought me this T-shirt, and it was just, I don't know if you know the band Kraftwerk. They're an old German band, but the shirt is just 4 guys standing behind like computer keyboards, just on a stage, and it's all like green lighting. But I wore that shirt everywhere, and I used to get so many like responses from like young people being like, "That shirt's so cool," and I'm like, Kraftwerk? They're like, "No, but
the shirt's cool."
But the shirt's cool. Like, I think it spoke to them, like that image of just some guy, sort of guys being on stage creating music. And they're like, "Yeah, that's the thing now. They don't need instruments. It's all computers." But it was really cool. I love that shirt, and it was really hard for me to get away, so give it up. And I was like, "There's no sense in keeping this ratty shirt that's like literally coming apart and doesn't even have the image on it anymore."
It has the memories, and that's the thing, is you get to hold on to the memories, even if the physical shirt is no longer around.
Right.
Yeah, what's interesting about this week's tasks? Some I get very pissed at her very quickly. So, because I think one of the things that she's doing is she's got some of these suppositions that we all are under the thrall of our parents, of what our parents did or said, and therefore we take all our cues from them. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. I do not take – if I took my cues from my father, I would be very money-oriented, because he is very money-oriented. And so number 4, when she asks in the Money Madness exercise, she goes, "My dad thought money was – and my answer to that was, who gives a shit?" So that was what I wrote, So it's really interesting to me. Like, I don't care what he thinks about money. I care what I think about money in this kind of situation. And the same goes for some of the other things. When she said there is this, I guess, bias when you were in kindergarten and you pressed flowers, and I'm like, I skipped kindergarten, and I also skipped 2nd grade. So immediately there's almost like a barrier, and lots of people in countries that are not the USA don't have kindergarten. So it's interesting to me to be bounced out of the work of the book because of some of the perspectives that the author is bringing to them. So I found that very interesting. As I'm going through the book, I'm kind of having to go, "Oh, don't worry about it. You just have to chill out and work it the way you need to work it." So that's part of it. The other part, for me, I have an altar. I have rocks, crystals, things like that on it. So I didn't do it. I just honored the ones that I already have on my altar. I did not press flowers, in part because I hate cut flowers. If you've ever thought to give me flowers, please don't. Poor Rich doesn't know what to do sometimes. There was a point at which I wasn't eating sugar, so he would be like, "I can't get you flowers. I can't get you candy. What the hell can I do?" I don't like cut flowers because they're dying. Immediately upon being cut, they're dying, and I just don't like that. So I don't do anything with cut flowers. And, a plant would be fine as long as cats can, gnaw on it and not die. So, but the creation thing, I made a pizza, and I did it like Andrew McCarthy in the movie Mannequin. And if you've ever seen the movie Mannequin, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I put all the toppings all the way around the pizza, and I wasn't stingy with the toppings, like they put 2 mushroom slices down on the entire thing and go, "There, you've got mushrooms on your pizza." So it was like this work of art pizza, and I loved that. The process of doing it made me feel really good.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it was great. That part was great. And then I had to change my home environment because of the flooding. So I did something that is really interesting, and it's changing some of the things I'm doing. The other thing I had to do is buy a new green screen because my green screen that I use got ruined. It's no longer one uniform color because of the flooding. So I had to get another one. And yeah, it sucks hard. Anyway, but what I did is I now have, and maybe what I'll do is I'll take a picture and put it in the show notes. I have these two curtains sets, one blue, one purple, and behind them I have the green screen. So I have this kind of homemade little studio in my tiny little office, which is not much wider than like 6 feet by maybe 8 feet. It's a tiny room, but I'm able to do my TikToks from it. And I'm doing this thing with TikTok that I got inspired to do this week where I'm calling them song thoughts. And I'm recording little snippets of melodies that I write, that I create, and little word rhymes that I write and create. And I'm recording them and I'm singing them in front of the green screen. And here's how you can sort of think about this. I've been doing this art project where I'm doing some kind of a creative art piece every single day, a digital art piece. And a lot of them are coming out very like kaleidoscope-like. So I'm taking those and I am putting them as the I'm green screening them.
Your background.
Yes, I'm making them my background
awesome.
as I do these little song thoughts about creativity and being an artist and whatever
That's
else
so
comes
great.
into my mind. And I'm putting them up on TikTok and Instagram Reels. And one of them, which was about a couple of guests I have on the show, Odyssey and Mike Kaplan. Odyssey being a hip hop artist and music producer. When I did the one for him being on the show, that one went nuts. I got more likes on it than I have ever gotten on anything I've ever posted on Instagram. It's like in the hundreds. And
Nice.
yeah, it came out great and it was a lot of fun. And so this is another way where having to retool my environment brought me to this really cool new thing that I can do in a really actually very easy way. I have this app called Teleprompter, and here's the thing about this app, and I highly recommend it. If you can spend the $20, it's this app that you can video record yourself, but at the very top where your camera lens is, you get a little teleprompter of whatever it is you want to say, and you can video record yourself. And when you're done, you can create you can add a logo and you can green screen. So if you record in front of a green screen, you can add whatever background you want. How cool is that?
Sounds
That's
rad.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really, and I'm having a really good time with it too. So, and it's a way for me to talk about creativity and art and ingenuity that uses my singing. And so I'm sort of integrating all of these different aspects of what I do into one message. And that may be the very best thing that comes out of this whole process for me is that kind of integration, because I often spread myself too thin. So
That's
there
really great.
you
Can I
go.
ask, as far as the art project, is that something that was supposed to be for like 3 months, 5 months? Is it just ongoing until you feel like you're done, or is it forever? How? Okay.
It's a year. In 2010, I did a year worth of short stories. You may have heard me talk about this in Writers Group. I did a micro short story every single day from a word prompt for a year. And some of those I turned into screenplays, and then we turned them into movies, and it went all over the place. And so back in September, I started doing an art piece every day. It's a way of sparking my ingenuity. And when I work with my clients, when I go into companies and organizations to do this kind of ingenuity and innovation work, this is the kind of stuff I talk about, that you can set yourself these incredible creative goals. And I don't take a lot of time making this stuff, right? I don't take like an hour. It takes like 10 minutes in the morning, right when I wake up. Whatever I've been dreaming of, I create an art piece around it. And some of them are terrible. Some of them are really good. Some of them are, don't ever show them to anybody, although I'm showing them anyway, because I figure let's be creative. Yeah. And some of it is going to suck. And sometimes you have to get past the suck to get to the juicy good stuff. So there you go. All righty. So yeah, that was the long answer to a short question. So let's talk about abundance, unless anybody else has something you'd like to say about the tasks.
No, I guess I'll respond because that Money Madness exercise is was interesting because I think like it is set up for people to have certain reactions. It feels that way. It feels like oh, people are gonna have certain things here. But I always felt like I was like, some of them were like, yeah, this is easy, and I don't know. I wrote, my mom always thought money would be there. I think it stressed her out, I think, but I felt like she was always like, it's coming in. We just have to manage it. So that was like, I don't know. That was interesting to me. I was like, I don't think that's the answer that people have about that. But I also felt like, it's like, these are how our views get, how we associate to money. And then the fact that you're like, who the fuck cares how my dad thought about money? It's like, well, maybe you do care. Maybe that's why you rejected money, because you know how he felt about money. He was obsessed, like you said, obsessed with it, right? So that may be one of the ways you're trying to distance yourself from him, not to analyze whatever. But I was just like, sorry, I guess maybe to analyze it, but
that's fine. That's fine. Absolutely. And it's possible. The way I look at that kind of parental relationship, if it's not a positive one, is that when you are neutral towards the person, when you're like, yeah, whatever, then you're done. I don't know that I will ever be done with my issues around my dad. And this isn't this isn't an episode about we're not talking let's psychoanalyze Isolde. So I don't want to get too much into it. But I think no. I think the way my father tried to control my creativity, as well as every other aspect of my life, your point is well taken. And yet the thing is that I really don't care what he thought about money, because I think his relationship with money was unhealthy. This is not to say that I think my relationship with money is particularly healthy. I think there's a happy medium where you can be aware of what's coming in, but also still stay in flow. I just have a thing where I'll give you an example, and I don't know if I've ever talked about this before with you all. So many years ago, back when I lived in D.C., I had my mail stolen, and the guy who stole it he lived on my block, which, but he stole a credit card, and then he came back and stole a checkbook and got the PIN. So he was able to just start taking $300 out day after day after day. And then on top of everything else, he took my checkbook, wrote a check to the credit card company for $1,000 so that he could keep the card active. Right. So I lost $5,000. And when I could not, I could not afford to lose it. No, it's fine. But when I could not afford to lose it. But here's the thing that happened, right? Well, it is and it isn't. Let me finish the story. I feel like it's like that old Chinese tale where the man and his son are farmers, and a stray horse comes into their paddock, and the neighbors are all like, "Oh, you're so lucky," and the man goes, "We'll see." And it's that kind of story, right? When all of this went down, I noticed that I only had $100 in my checking account, and I went over to the credit union. This is when I worked at the National Geographic Society, and they had a little credit union at the National Geographic Society. And I talked to the woman who knew me, and I'm like, I don't understand why I have so little money. And she goes, oh, that's because check 251 was for $1,000. And I went, I did not write $1,000 check. What the hell? And check 251 was the first check in the next box of checks, right? So here's the thing, right? She went, oh, let me look into that. And so I contacted the credit card company, found out they were like, we'd already put a flag on your account. All of this stuff went down, and we figured it out. And eventually the postal inspector caught the guy. They were in my house looking down as he came and he stole more mail, and they were able to arrest him, blah, blah, blah. So, and I ultimately only lost $50 after a long time dealing with it. But here was the thing that was fascinating to me about the money. I'm standing at the National Geographic Society Credit Union, and I'm talking to the woman, Tammy was her name, we were trying to investigate what was going on. And I was supposed to have like $1,100 in my account, and I suddenly had $100, and I was freaking out because I had written all these checks and it was going to be very bad. And as I watched her, she hit the left arrow to in front of that one and added another one. And she goes, your money's back. And I went, what? And she goes, it was clearly our fault. We should not have cashed that check. It was not your signature. I just put the money back. And I realized that was it, that's what money is. Money is a construct. We all agree that it's there or it isn't there. And she just went over, left arrow, one, and my money was back. So that just, it freaked me out, but it also opened my eyes that so much of this is because we perceive it. So that's one of the reasons I have the relationship with money that I do. Some of it is probably, yes, Alan, my dad, but a lot of it was that moment in time when I was like, holy crap. It works that way for everybody, not just me. Holy crap. And that was a watershed moment in my life. Anyway, so moving along.
Oh, thanks for sharing that story.
Isn't it something? It's bizarre.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It was. Believe me, it was crazy, and I was very happy that he took me for $5,000. He took a person around the corner for $14,000. It was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and when they caught him, he had something like 55 big, huge plastic bags full of people's mail. He was just walking around taking people's mail and stealing what he could. It was really bad. But anyway, let's talk about abundance. Let's change the energy here. So I'm going to read the meaning of abundance. I looked it up in a couple different dictionaries, and I want to read the meaning of it because the whole chapter this week is supposed to be on rediscovering that sense of abundance. So according to dictionary.com, the meaning of abundance is an extremely plentiful or over-sufficient quantity or supply, which gives it a slightly negative connotation. Bear that in mind. The Merriam-Webster says an ample quantity, an abundant amount, profusion. Those are the meanings of the word abundance. So I wanted to talk to you about those meanings and ask your opinions about whether or not you agree with those meanings, or if you have another one. What does abundance mean to you? Sergio, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I feel like in regards to art or just in general.
Just in general?
Yeah, I guess abundance for me just means, something like a large quantity of something. It doesn't have to be something physical. It can be an emotion, a feeling that you have, or, something practical, like an abundant amount of books someone delivered you. Maybe that's just a really basic way to look at it, but that's what abundance means to me.
That works for me. Megan, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I do have thoughts. I thought a lot about that in this chapter. I think because it's such a really fraught topic for so many people. I think for me, what abundance means is that I no longer have to think about what I don't have. I have enough that if I want to buy something, I can just buy it. I don't have to think about, well, where's the money coming from? What am I going to not buy so I can have this thing? When it comes to money, that's what abundance means to me. And I think when it comes to art, it's really about time for me. Like when do I have time to create? Like when am I not just squeezing my art into these little spaces that I have between all of my other obligations? So I think really in general, what abundance means to me is just having enough that you no longer have to think about the lack, what you don't have.
I love that. That makes all sorts of sense to me. Alan, what about you?
Yeah, that's a great answer, Megan. That you just don't have to think about it. I think similarly, like abundance means to me like there's flow, right? Like it's not going to run out. You're not in need. You have what you need and it's there for you. So it's abundant, and it means like it almost feels like it's replenishing, or like there is no end, almost like a bottomless pot of coffee, right? Except those are lies.
Now I want coffee.
Oh, sorry. Me too. No, but that to me, yeah, just like that it does feel like flow to me. And I think like that's part of what she's trying to get us to do, or what I'm trying to reconnect to is my feeling of like money is energy. Money is part of that cycle, and I can draw it to me rather than be afraid of it or be afraid of not having enough or be afraid that I'll spend it on the wrong thing or, not have it at the right time. It's the opposite of that, right? That's and which was the one you said had a negative connotation to it, Isolde?
That over-sufficient quantity or supply. Over-sufficient to me has a kind of a negative, like it's too much.
It's a bit extra.
Excessive.
Yeah. and it feels a little weird to have read that. I was like, oh, that feels like an ill-fitting suit a little bit. I'm not sure that to me, abundance is always the notion is plentiful, not, in dictionary.com, it's extremely plentiful. It's over-sufficient. And to me, abundance is plentiful. So there, like Megan said, there is no lack. But, for my thought on it is very simple. It's one of my mantras is I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. And when I feel satisfied in all three of those, that is the sense of abundance to me.
I love that.
Really beautiful. I love that.
Thanks. So let's move on. This is where things get problematic. You remember me talking, and Alan and I we got into it a little bit a couple weeks ago about me being like on the soapbox about Alan. I have a great memory. It's not just you. It's just I know you're frustrated by it. I can tell. But it is interesting though, that notion of you get, God gets the credit if you succeed and you get the blame if you fail. This chapter made it so explicit to me that, as long as you believe, then the money's going to come. If you don't believe in God, then you're doomed essentially. And so that brings me to my question here to all of you. Can we have a sense of abundance without a sense of a higher power? Can it be the energy of attraction that's working in our lives instead of, or maybe in addition to, if this is what you believe, a God figure in our lives? What are your thoughts on that? Megan, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think I had a lot of issues with this chapter too, for that reason, because she seems to attribute so much of where your sense of abundance should come from to like a belief in a higher power. And again, I think my issue with that isn't that she has this belief system. It's that she's writing this as if it's should be accessible to every single person with every single kind of belief system. And it's not really inclusive in that way, the way she's talking about it as if it is. And so I think that for me, I really had to do a lot of like mental gymnastics to get past that first. And to me, like the idea of like, I think what she's saying is that hard work alone won't get you there, which I would agree with. But I also think that there's always that element of attraction. Like you do kind of have to be in the right mindset. But again, I think that even that idea kind of leads to some really toxic, I think, cultural ideas that I think specifically kind of manifest in a lot of the way we in the United States talk about money, like that really ignores institutional inequities in the real world that everyone lives in. I mean, it's just not true that everyone has the same access to the possibility of money when people are coming from such vastly different starting points, I mean, but I also think that it's true that your beliefs around what's possible for you can absolutely affect your chances too. Like, I don't think it's entirely one-sided, but she's framing it again as if it is. So I really struggled with that in this chapter. Did you, Sergio? What did you think about that?
Yeah, so I definitely struggled as well with this chapter. I thought last week was pretty God heavy, but that was just setting us up for this week, I think, as far as the first few pages of this week's chapter. And, we've all expressed how we felt about that, so I won't get into too specific on that front. But I will say she does even say at one point, she's referring to someone named Nancy. Nancy, like many of us, needs to overhaul her God concept in order to fully recover her creativity. It's exactly what Isolde is saying. Like, if according to Julia, if you don't follow or believe in this or have faith in this kind of God, an idea that she's placed in this book, then you may never reach your full creativity or even recover it. And yeah, that just doesn't sit well with me. With that being said, again, I do have a spiritual side to me, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that or having faith. That can be a beautiful thing, and I respect it. But yeah, I did have trouble with that, and I like how Megan was talking about doing mental gymnastics. I think, is that what you called it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. I have to learn how to do. I have to do some mental stretching and try that out when reading some of these chapters. Um, and I just really liked how you try to do that to make it sit well better for you. And yeah, Alan, how did you feel about this?
Well, I'm still breathing, so I loved
God is there.
it. Like, I didn't feel the guy. I was more obsessed with the money part on this, and I think there is that feeling. I think when she talks about the Nancy person, she's referring to her thinking God doesn't affect money or whatever, or whatever this energy is the law of attraction. It doesn't affect money. Like, it wouldn't be involved in that dirty thing, right? But money, if you think of it as an energy or flow, then it's a different thing. And it was interesting because as you were talking, Megan, about like the actual inequities that exist out in the world, and I was just thinking about how she in this book is just making us like look at different aspects of our lives and what are we interested in, and what's available to us, and where do we draw energy from. And she's like basically just saying like tune into the places that draw energy from, and you may not be getting financial, maybe money isn't the thing that you have, but maybe you have like family that's really ready there for you, or a group of friends that have taken you in. Maybe your energy is coming from something you love doing that you're able to do with no money. Maybe it's not about
Doesn't
money sometimes. Like, as much as this
doesn't
abundance
she
is
say at
about
one
money.
point that, I'm sorry to interrupt, that they aren't the source, that all those
Go ahead.
people and all those things aren't the source, that it is God is the true source? I remember underlining that.
She does.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
was like,
does she?
WTF?
Yeah.
I literally wrote that in the book. I'm sorry not to interrupt or
Well,
contest
then
anything you're saying.
no,
And
no,
I
no,
completely
no,
agree with a lot of what
no.
you're saying.
That's that. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, listen, I don't take her word for word.
Yeah.
No, I think like that's the thing. We have to just accept that that's going to be part of this book. I think she did like this is a revised edition,
Mhm.
and it's we can give her notes after notes, but I think she does the probably thing in the beginning was added maybe to account for this, how heavy it is, and if she's mimicking a AA recovery model or a 12-step recovery model, of course it's going to be laden with God, and she couldn't edit all those out, and she just
I'm just finding it
copied and
difficult
pasted.
to.
No, I'm
just finding
kidding.
it difficult to
That's a terrible.
reframe it,
Yeah.
because I feel like the way she's wording things aren't as inclusive, so it's hard for me to reframe a lot of these things. But I really like hearing your side of it, and it's definitely helping.
Yeah, I'm just saying, even if it's not friends and family, like or it's the laws of attraction. I think like you can start with what you are attracting, what you are attracting, right? What's abundant. It's making. I just suddenly thought of this Brazilian TV show that they aired on HBO. I can't remember, but it's this banker who loses everything, and basically lives close to the beach. So he starts a new business as like the umbrella renter, and they start selling drinks and on the beach. And it's like, well, you have the access to this resource. Obviously he's a banker, he has the money, but like it's just changing focus and where it is. And I think if we get too caught up on it being a god and not letting her words lay as they do in the beginning, to be like use it however you want, but there is gravity, there is forces acting, the laws of attraction, there is like other forces that we can utilize and tune into, and they're beyond our power. So I don't know how that
No,
makes you feel. But I'm on Earth thanks to gravity.
Yeah,
you know, like there's a bunch of elements that like we don't understand, and whatever people have written about what God is, what that is, it's like it's it's guesses, it's like theories, and like there's a lot of people have told you down as like it's the law or it's the real truth, and you can only believe really what you really experience, I think, and that's the thing. Like, so I can't speak to how someone in a different environment would take this book. I mean, you got, we're all taking it on our own, but I don't know. I don't think, I think we just have to accept that some things are that we're able to draw from our life in the way that we are. It's hard for me. I'm not fine. I'm struggling. I got my problems, but I think for me to be like, I can't do it on my own. I couldn't do it without you guys. I couldn't, people need help, and people.
And sometimes faith can be helpful.
There's,
I
faith
definitely
can be
agree with
helpful,
that.
and it's a place to
Totally.
it's a place to lean on, and I think like the rejection of all things outside of our known, like the idea that science and religion are not the same thing, are not like science trying to prove the things that are within religion, to me is absolutely absurd. It's like we're just trying to figure it out.
Alan,
and
just because I feel like we're having a good back and forth here, Isolde did ask, and I don't think I answered this for my question, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Do you feel like that you need this faith to do your art or to achieve your creative endeavors? Do you think someone needs to have faith in an idea like that?
In an idea like
what?
A
higher power,
an idea
or,
like
if you will, a spiritual force, God, what have you? Do you feel like an artist or someone needs that in order to?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can call it determination. You can call it inspiration. I think an artist needs to be able to draw from somewhere. Sure. Yeah.
And I think that, I think the thing about this is a great discussion, and because there is no way to prove one way or another about any of this, it's in some ways an intellectual exercise. It is interesting to me, though, that what we're discussing is what does it hinge on? What does the sense of abundance hinge on for us? Is it that we have enough? Is it that we don't have to worry about the lack? Is it that we have faith in something outside ourselves? These are all really good potentials, and I think probably a lot of this is up to the individual person, up to the individual artist, or up to the individual creative to decide what it is. Some people might go, it's me and only me, and some people might say it's me and my friends. Some people might say it's me and my clients. Some might say it's me and the force. May the force be with you. Some people might say it's me and God. I don't know how much it matters, but I do wonder about whether or not there are people out there who ascribe to a notion or don't ascribe to a notion about a higher power, who let that, whatever their stance is, dictate whether or not they are pursuing art or creativity. If you see what I mean. Like, she talks about how, she's, that there are lots of people who are waiting to have enough money to pursue their art. And that's not true for me at all. I'm pursuing my art like crazy. But I also really, on the practical side, want to have money coming in while I do. What are your thoughts on that? Alan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely felt like I've put off things because I was waiting for me to get more settled or more, financially stable. And part of what I've picked up, and, when I think we started this, 6-7 weeks ago, and I brought up money, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking about money, because I think I'm tired of talking about it. People hate talking about it. And I was like, So I was kind of like excited. I was like, oh, we are talking about money. It's a thing. And what I've realized is like lots of people struggle with money. Everyone's got their own relationship with it. And part of the way I deal with money is a result of how my life has led up until now. And so what I feel is like I have the opportunity to change my relationship to money and be more welcoming of it into my life and be a better caretaker of it, so that I'm using it to fuel my creativity and not just my my fears of not having enough or not being able to eat enough or going hungry, and I think there is like the people do use God or money or whatever to like deny themselves access to this energy, this creative energy that we have. And so I think like I think this is what I can't settle on to. Like, I have a right to exist.
Yes.
And the only way I like that right is given to me by who? I don't know. I just accept it, right? I have a right to exist. And since I have a right to exist, I have a right to be creative. And I have maybe because I exist, I have the responsibility to be creative. I don't know, and I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where the right comes from, but I just know that I have a right to exist. And if you disagree with me on that, then that's where I'll really get upset with you, or feel like you don't believe in the same thing that I believe in, which is my right to exist and yours. I don't know if that's making sense, but that's like the core of my spiritual existence is I have a right to exist, and that's given to me by existing.
And I think that
the God of existence,
or the philosophers, Descartes. I think therefore I am, and that's it. That you don't need more than to have the sentient thought that you are here and you deserve to be here, to deserve to be here. That's it. And there are other philosophers. It's like that old T-shirt: "To be is to do is to be, doobie doobie do." It is that. Who are we? We are who we say we are. Do you think you have the right to exist? I most certainly hope so. You've said you do, ergo, you do, right? And yet there are people out there who fundamentally don't believe that, right? They fundamentally believe that they're somehow sneaking in under the radar. And to me, that's tragic, because I think we all, if you're here, you deserve to be here. But there are people out there who don't believe that. And so either they need something else outside of themselves to hold on to, or eventually they're going to need to get to a place where they do start approximating where you are, which is, I have the right to exist. And that can be really hard for people. I've had lots of clients where we spend a lot of the time we're working together getting them to believe they deserve to be here, because a lot of us don't walk around with that certainty. So good on you, Alan, that you feel that way. See, no, seriously, that's a huge deal. Having that certainty is a big freaking deal. I hope that you.
I'm doubting.
Don't
Hopefully not.
No.
Hopefully not. But yeah, no, I appreciate this. This is a tender and vulnerable topic of conversation, and I appreciate you being so open about it. But let us move on, or we'll be talking about this one thing for the next 3 hours. Megan, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, what Alan was saying really kind of spoke to me, because in working through this chapter and trying to figure out like doing my mental gymnastics and trying to figure out how I can make this concept kind of work for me, I realized that I kind of believe the same thing. Like, I deserve to exist and I deserve to create because I exist. And it doesn't matter to me where that comes from. I don't believe that it comes from a God figure. But because I'm here, because I'm breathing and alive, and because I want to create things, I have the right to do that. And I think that kind of what she was getting at is that if you don't have a belief that a creative career, or even like your own ability to create, if you don't believe in that, then you're not going to do the work necessary to find that in your life in any shape or form. And so that part of the chapter actually resonated with me a lot, because I think that I went through a long period of time, about 7 years of my adulthood, where I kind of gave up on the idea of creating. I mean, I was always still making stuff. I never stopped writing at any point, but I really stopped pushing to make that a bigger part of my life, because I didn't believe that it was possible. I didn't believe that that possibility even existed for me, or that it could. And I think that for a lot of people, like the stuckness she's talking about at the core of this book, I feel like it's that really, it's the feeling that those possibilities don't exist, and that if you don't see that the possibilities exist and that an abundance in the world can include those possibilities for you, then you're not going to see any opportunities that are there for you. Like even if they show up, you won't be ready for them, or you won't even notice when they're just passing you by.
Yes, absolutely. It's like opening yourself up to flow, energy, inspiration.
Yeah, wherever that comes from, it doesn't.
Yeah.
She seemed a big part of her process is about where it comes from and surrendering, and that's the part that I think I really resist, because, I don't like to cede control in that way, or like Isolde says, like giving up credit to God when I do something that I think is awesome. But I do believe that you have to be tuned into the possibilities that exist out there in the world, wherever they come from, even if you just think that they're created by other people, which is where I tend to stick with my beliefs. Like if you aren't tuned into seeing those possibilities, then you're not going to connect with them when they show up in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that quite clearly, and I appreciate how eloquently you put that. And it's interesting. No, I mean it is interesting, isn't it, that we looking at it from a slightly different perspective, that notion of what you just said, it's like, oh wait, maybe that isn't the issue. Maybe there are other issues. Maybe there are financial concerns, for example, because our creativity isn't financially viable or feasible, or maybe it's not commercial enough, or maybe we're not skilled at marketing. All of those things are real world concerns that can attack an artist's ability to create art. But that doesn't mean that either the artist shouldn't be creating the art, or that those concerns aren't concerns. They can coexist, because the reality of that can coexist. So it's really interesting to me how we, as you said, do those mental gymnastics to make it work in whichever person's mind. And speaking of whichever person's mind, Sergio, what is in your mind about this?
No, it's just really interesting to hear everyone speak about this. And I really like my takeaway from what Alan and Megan are saying about that it's really more about just having belief and how that can be motivating and just give you that push, extra incentive to do things, or help with that at least. And I really feel that, having or believing in something is important, believing in anything, right? I think it was it Hamilton? If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. I feel like you can say that about belief, though. If you don't believe in anything, then, you'll fall for nothing, I guess. I don't know. But I really like that. I think that I completely agree. And I'm just going to learn how to do more mental gymnastics.
I love it. Yeah, I think for me, so much of this is that I hesitate to bring myself to a place where I, like my mom, who is a devout religious woman, she says, well, all I know is he's the boss. That's it. God's the boss. And I've had bad bosses, so it's hard for me to go, yes, that's it. And it's not something I do, and it's not something I practice, and it's not something I believe. So somebody listening to this, for example, is going to go, well, is Isolde full of shit because she doesn't believe what I believe? And I think one of the things that has to happen as you're working your way through your own creative discovery, or through the book, or just on your artist's journey, you end up having to figure out what works for you. And as I say, keep the best, lose the rest. Some of this will sit really funny with you as you're reading this. And some of it might just feel like you've come home, right? And so what we need to do is be critical thinkers, I think, and evaluate what works and evaluate what doesn't work, and then move on from there. Having said that, she's still, Cameron is one person. She's written this book with this guy who, I forget his name, Mark Bryan, I think, is her co-author. And they chose a perspective, and that perspective resonated with people. But there is a notion that if you are a recovering artist, if you are someone who is at different parts of the journey, we all get lumped into people who aren't creating, who don't think we can create, who don't believe we deserve to create, and so we all have to go through this process. So for me, like, she says that we're likely thinking that anything that feels like fun, like art or dance or writing, acting, singing, is frivolous and therefore not worth pursuing. But I'm not there, right? I feel like I'm absolutely in the camp that what I'm creating is worth paying for. It can be fun. It can be creative. And in fact, because people often do pay for what I've created, I just want to do more of it, right? So I'm in a different part of my journey than someone who has never sold their art, who's never sold a book or a painting or performed live in front of thousands of people, whatever it is. We're in different parts of the journey. So the book is static. We are dynamic, and we're going to have different responses to it. But I do want to know from you all, this is a tough question. How do you feel about that? Where are you with thinking that your art, whatever it is worth getting paid for? Megan, let's start with you.
That is the $1 million question, isn't it? I think.
But is it worth $1 million?
I think
the question.
I mean, I think where I am with that is that I'm at a place where I want to be good enough for that, but I don't think I'm there yet, and maybe that's a block I put in my own way. But I feel like just getting to the point where I could acknowledge that, yes, this is something I want. I want to be paid for my work. I want to be good enough to be paid well for my work eventually. That just getting there was really hard for me. And, but yeah, I don't think I'm there yet. I think I still have work to do. There's still, blocks I have to get out of my own way. There's still space I need to create, I think, but yeah, I guess that's difficult. It's still a hard question for me. Like, just you asking me that, Isolde, like my chest like squeezed. It was like
oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's cool. We should talk about this because it's difficult. But yeah, I mean, I want to be good enough. I do.
You are.
Thank you, Sergio. What do you think, Sergio? What is the question? What is the answer for you?
I feel similar. I want to be good enough to be paid for it, and in fact, I am paid for some of my writing and with the freelancing, and that felt pretty good when that first happened. It was pretty validating. I've had a couple articles that I've written online that I've been paid for as well. But at the same time, I don't know if that means that I'm worth creating the kind of art that I really want to put out there, like as far as my short stories or my screenplays or just writing for film. If you ask me, do I think I'm good enough to get paid for that? That's a tough question. I don't know. I'd like to think that I will be, that I have the potential to create something that would resonate with people, that maybe you'd like to give me some money for it, but I don't know if I'm there yet. But I'm working towards it, and you are definitely such a help with that, and I appreciate you helping me grow. And I'm sorry. Let me switch it over to Alan and ask him how he feels about this.
Well, that's great, Sergio. You definitely do deserve to get paid for your art, and I'm glad that you are getting some. And Megan, you too. And I was like, doesn't Megan get paid to write sometimes?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do. I write it for my day job, but I mean, like my creative work.
There you go. Well, yeah, I don't think you need to differentiate them. I know what you mean, but I think you just need to finish your book and put it out, and then you'll be deserving of it, making money off of it. But seriously though, I did have a breakthrough, and I think it helped our writers meeting this weekend. talking about what a writer is, and I ended up writing a little bit that night and working on the screenplay, and I was like, oh. I think Isolde, you'll like that's just like, oh, writers are just people who finish, they get it done.
That's true.
And I was like, oh, I can just do this. And it was a huge block that I was like, wait, why did I put this here? I can just finish things and start and something, and move on them. I know there's more work to be done after that. But in regards to, so you guys are great writers. Isolde, of course, amazing. You all deserve to be paid for your art, and everyone listening, like, you just have to value it, right? You have to value what you're putting out there, and it's a struggle sometimes, right? Like, and you get into habits, and like coming from an improv world, it's easy for me to just be like, well, let me just try something and make it up, and then see if anyone wants it. And people were like, oh, it's free, thank you. Perfect.
Free is the enemy of the paid artist. Yes, I'm sorry. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
No, but it's like sometimes you, as an artist, you just want to create, and the money's not the goal of that particular moment, but it would be nice, obviously, to be rewarded. And I've been paid to be an actor. I've been paid to direct, and I don't know if I've ever been paid to write, but I've been paid to be a comedian.
Awesome.
So yes, it's not as much as I would like, but I was also just thinking, like, Megan was talking, just like, maybe it's just about turning on that faucet, and I think what we want is that faucet to just fucking cash flow, like, but we just have to turn it on and let that first trickle come out and let it build, and I think it can, maybe that's less frightening to think like, oh, just pay me a little bit. Let me start low and build up to it, rather than, like, because, like, I don't know, just in the fantasy world of me as an actor, I'm just like, well, I just want to get that one movie, and then I'll be a millionaire all of a sudden.
Oh, cool.
And the fact is, people go do movies, and then they go back to bartending, or they go back to waiting tables, and they do their series pilot, and then they go back and do their jobs. My buddy was on the electric company and stopped working with us for 5 years, and then came back and did visual merchandising with us again. But now he's back there making money. He's on Broadway and stuff like that for his art, and he's put a lot of energy into that, and I respect it. But it's a flow, and you got to find out what works for you. But I deserve to be paid as an artist. There.
Yay!
Definitely.
Yay!
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So positive.
And so
I
do you
appreciate
guys.
you.
That is.
Trying
you're
here.
succeeding.
Yeah. No, I mean, what's really funny about that? Yes, I think you're trying. I think you're succeeding, and I think that the hard part is that we have those doubts before we even finish, right? So it's really hard to go, I've written this thing. No, before that, I'm writing this thing, I'm creating this thing, I'm painting, I'm doing whatever it is I'm doing, and holy crap, I'm spending so many hours, so many months, years sometimes on this thing, and I'm like, ta-da! And people go, oh, that's nice, and they move on, right? So you're taking that chance. You are if you create something because, like you said, Alan, because you just need to create it and you are not interested as a primary goal for it to make money, then, hey, create it. Go you. That's awesome. I have a real pragmatic side for me, and I'm not talking about you, Alan, in general, personally. I'm talking about in general. I have a pragmatic side to me. I want to be paid for my art, but there are a couple of different things that have to be happening. You need a following, right? Nowadays, you need a following. Why? 20, 30 years ago, before the book publishing industry revolution, you weren't going to get published unless you found an editor or an agent and they liked it and you were in one of the big 6 publishing companies, and boom, right? They didn't have boutique publishing. They didn't have a lot of independent publishing companies. So just like when we think about ancient times, and if there's a queen and there's the whoever, Turlo O'Carolan, coming by and playing, and he's the court musician, you can think about all the cajillions of people who weren't the court musician, right? And they weren't able to find ways to perform. They were scullery maids or whatever they did. They weren't the court musician or the court jester, because only one person was the court musician. So we are living in times where anybody who wants to create can create. And anybody who wants to try and sell their stuff can try and sell their stuff. You can try and get it to an agent or editor. You can go on auditions. You can put out your music on YouTube. There are limitless possibilities of what we can do, in the hopes that we'll get enough subscribers or enough people who want to buy our stuff, and then we'll make money with our art. We are living in amazing, unprecedented times, because if you want to and you put in the work, you can. Right? That's just how it is. But there are certain things that have to happen for you to be able to do that. You need a following. You need people. Like I put this in the writers group the other day. Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans. He talks about it. He's like, you don't need millions of fans. You need 1,000 people who love your shit and who are going to follow you and who are going to want to read, listen to, watch, whatever it is you're doing. Right? You don't need 10,000. You don't need 1 million. You need 1,000. And eventually those 1,000 people become evangelists for what you do. And they might tell friends, and that might start the ball rolling, but you need 1,000. That's his goal. And I maintain you don't even need that many. You need fewer than that, but you need people who are actually actively interested in supporting what you're doing. Right? But you have to have that list. You have to have that following. You have to have those people who are like, I want to support what you're doing. I might not be creative in this way, but I really love what you're doing and I want to support it. So on top of having the following or getting the following, you need to market to your following. You need to be telling people what you're doing. And that takes a lot of sense of self and a lot of courage, because sometimes you're quaking in your boots and you are terrified of sharing what you're doing, right? Because what if people hate it? And I maintain, yeah, what if they do? They might. And you have to move past that into, I'm just going to keep telling people what I'm doing because I believe in it. Even if they don't, even if they think it's crap, I believe in it. And I will find my 1,000 true fans, because there are 8 freaking billion people on the planet, right? So there's something to this notion of create it, do it, put it out there, get it out there. People have succeeded, writers have succeeded, whatever. I don't know if you've read those books. I have not read them, but I understand the 50 Shades books are supposed to be poorly written, but they're page turners. Like, she was able to, I forget her name, the author, but she was able to write books where you really wanted to know what happened next, even though the writing itself was apparently quite poor. But people loved it, and it just caught fire. So if you're doing something and it catches fire, awesome. If you're too afraid to put it out there, like she did with, it was fan fiction. It was, I think, Twilight fan fiction or something like that. She put it out there on the original 50 Shades. It was the main characters, and I haven't read those books either, the Twilight books. They were the main characters originally. And then when it started taking off, she changed their names so that she wouldn't infringe copyright, and they took off, right? So when we're talking about this stuff, you have to understand, I think, if you're listening to this, that you've got to finish. You must finish what you're working on. You must dedicate the time, and you've got to finish it, because you will never know if someone would be dying to read or look at or watch or whatever what you're doing until you finish it and you put it out there for people to see or read or watch or listen to or whatever. So that's part of my answer to that. The other part of it is pivoting, right? You, like Alan, you were talking about how we sometimes have to, right? You go, I have a friend who went out, he just celebrated 18 years out in LA, and he's like, yeah, I really thought that I would be out there and I would get my sitcom in the first year and I'd be a big star. And he's like, still waiting 20 years later. And I feel that way too. Like, yeah, I have put out CDs, I've made movies, I've written 6 books, and nobody cares whether or not I've already done this. It's not a woe is me thing. It's more like, okay, my job is to make the stuff and put it out there and market it and connect with people and believe in what I'm doing. And if I have to step away and go do tarot card readings because that's what I'm doing right now, then I step away and I go do my tarot card readings. And then when I'm done with the tarot card readings and I've done the gig or the singing gig or the whatever, I come back and I do my writing, right? So sometimes you have to. A really recent example that I sort of realized the other day was Damon Wayans Jr. Started the TV show New Girl. And immediately upon starting it, I think he did the pilot. Immediately upon doing the pilot, he got cast in a bigger role in the TV show Happy Endings. And he went, well, bye, New Girl. I have kind of a lead role in this other show. And he went on to this other show. And he did Happy Endings for, I don't know, 3 seasons or whatever. And then Happy Endings got summarily canceled. And he showed up at New Girl's door and went, hey, let me back in. And he came back. Right? I do too. I think New Girl is great. I also liked Happy Endings. But the point is that he did it. He was like, oh, that got canceled. I'm going to go check in with New Girl. And they went, yeah, we'll take you back. You were a great character. Nothing wrong with pivoting. We are all free to make those choices. So I really feel like listening to the external force is the only thing that decides whether or not you succeed. That's one of the reasons that it makes me feel like I'm a cat being rubbed the wrong way, because I feel like if you want to do it, the key is to put in the work and then put it out there. And if that book doesn't or that movie doesn't catch on, make another one. Keep doing the work. Butts in seats, do the work. And if it never catches on, then at least you know you've done the work. But honestly, one of the things like the 4 of us have done here, and I will shut up in a minute. I'm sorry I'm talking so long. But one of the things the 4 of us have done here, I feel like I will support you 3 in whatever the hell you want to do. You want to start walking tightropes? I will support you walking tightropes because we've built a collaboration and a friendship and mutual respect of working together. And so whatever it is you want to do, I am your biggest freaking fan. And that's what we can do for each other. We can support each other. We can highlight and elevate and magnify your reach. We can magnify each other's reach. That's one of the things that artists can do for each other. Even if you're terrified, you can still magnify someone else's reach. And then when you finish the one poem, they can magnify yours. And that is crucial to our survival and also to thriving as artists. Stepping off the soapbox.
It's a beautiful soapbox.
Great points. Absolutely.
So there you go. Phew. I'm glad I actually got all that recorded, because that I've been needing to say something about this for quite some time, obviously. And boy, did I. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I just open my mouth and I channel. It's like when I officiate weddings, people say, oh, that was so beautiful. I'm like, I don't remember what I said. I'm glad somebody videotaped, because I have no idea what I just said. So I'm glad there's a recording of this. All right, cool. Let us move on, unless somebody else has something to say about that particular topic.
No, I think that summed it up. That was really, really great. Thank you, Tholo.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let us move on. Okay. So the next question that I had about this was, she talks about that the notion that challenges or difficulties are virtues and art is just, quote unquote, fooling around. What does that mean to you, and how does that make you feel when you hear that statement?
Can you repeat it?
Sure. She says, I'm paraphrasing, that challenges and difficulties are virtues, that we believe that they're virtues, that they're like, oh, we're doing the right thing. And art is just fooling around. It's just something whimsical or frivolous instead of being something that is weighty and that has merit. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. And if you don't have any, we can move on. I want to really focus on the fact that some of this stuff is, again, like to quote Megan, mental gymnastics. So if you were like, yeah, I don't really think about it, we can move on. I just wanted to see if any of you have that notion that, yeah, ultimately art is frivolous, and ultimately, if I'm, in the drudgery of stuff, that's when I'm being virtuous. What are your thoughts? Alan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely like a feeling that you're, if you're really grinding away and you're suffering, then like you must be, if you're working towards a goal and you're meeting challenges and you're overcoming them, then that's like, oh, you're doing the Lord's work or whatever.
Right.
No, the Lord's. And then if you want to, be an actor or you want to tell jokes, it's just like, oh, come on, like, be serious. And even like writers, like, well, what are you writing? What's so important? And there's this hierarchy, and everyone wants to be part of this hierarchy. But I think I've just come to realize, like, we need people all over the place, just telling stories and lifting people up. And recently in my morning pages, the phrase "worlds within worlds" I just had to like write that a few times. And just thinking all the different worlds, like the world of like medicine, the world of science, the world of improv comedy, the world of vegans, the world of writers, the world of all these different the world of geography, of where people are having those different experiences, right? There's just a lot of separate little communities and worlds that are out there that we'll barely get to skim the surface of. Like we walk into a hospital and we're like, this is my problem, I have an issue, and they're like, you're just one of the stories we're going to tell later today, right? Like you're just one of many to us. You're entering into our zone, and if we're not treating you the way you expect, it's because you're in our world and you're a passenger now, right? Like you don't get to run this world, even though it may be the center of your world in that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Perspective is a huge part of all of this.
But I think it's important that we have people who are artists and do capture those moments and see that stuff and relate it out to the wider world. Sure.
And again, elevate it, right? That's the point, is that it's a heightened reality, because it is from a person's or from a collaborative's perspective. That doesn't make it any less valid. It's from a particular point of view. And I love seeing what somebody else their perspective on X, whatever X happens to be. Sergio, why don't we go with you next?
I feel like for me, being creative is not something that isn't, that's frivolous or just something to do for fun, something not to take seriously. That's, honestly the opposite of how I feel about it. So I disagree with the notion that, just doing these productive kind of, or more practical kind of, going to work, all these things that we're told we should be doing. Not that we don't have to do a lot of these things, of course, but that we're told we should be doing. I don't see that as a virtue for me, but I do, or I can understand that, there are people out there who do feel that way, of course, and that can make it harder for other artists. And, those people can become crazy makers or, end up blocking a lot of artists, whether they're your parents, your family, friends. But that's just not how I live my life. Megan, how about you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, because I think that a lot of my ability to be creative in a really focused way comes down to my being able to believe that it's not just a frivolous pursuit. But at the same time, I think when I treat it entirely like a job, like entirely the way I treat my day job, then I run the risk of, really pushing myself so hard that it sort of drains the fun and the whimsy out of the creativity. And I think that's really been a huge part of the value to me of the Artist's Way as we've done it so far, like keeping that in mind. I had never really thought about it in that way before, but I think that's definitely something I've fallen victim to, like going either too far in one direction or too far in another. And I think a lot of that comes down to the stories we tell ourselves, as well as the stories that other people tell us about what creativity is or what it should be or what the possibilities of it are. Like whether or not it deserves to be taken seriously, and like what that seriousness looks like, I guess.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes absolute sense to me, and it's not that I'm going to be the lone voice of dissent to what all of you have just said, but I take a slightly different view. I think that her intent is to say that there's a disparity between the two, that there's a divide between the virtue and in challenge and difficulty and the frivolity of a creative pursuit, and I disagree with her wholeheartedly, yes, but also I don't see anything wrong with art being a frivolity. I think the freedom that comes with thinking, not placing such a burden on creativity, can be really uplifting. But having said that, I've written 6 books, and I still look at the first blank page and go, holy shit, what am I going to say? And so I have to rely on, if I were a person who knew what to say right now, what would I say? And that's my first line of every book. And that's okay, because it can feel very daunting and challenging and difficult to do something that I actually love to do. I love to tell stories. I love it. But that does not mean that I look at it as always a fun thing. And it doesn't mean that I look at it as a virtuous thing. Sometimes they blend together for me. And I feel like that, I come back to another little sentence I say to myself: I am the boss of this. This is not the boss of me. And I'm going to tell a quick story. My father, this is before he and I stopped talking, so this was like 30 years ago. He was building himself a house in the countryside in Michigan, a huge house. And he, in the process of building it, he had these 2x4s that were leading up to the second level, right? So it was in that state of construction. So the staircase was these 2x4s that were a spiral staircase kind of, or a curving staircase. I don't even remember. But there was no planks, right? So all you had was 2x4s. So when you're walking up them, I could sort of see the 2x4s and walk up them. And then when it came time to come down the stairs, I got terrified because I could not tell if there's an optical illusion or something. I could not find good footing to come down the steps. And so I got down on my butt and I sort of butt walked down the steps. And the entire rest of the afternoon, I was just pissed at myself because I hadn't found the courage to walk down those stairs, and kept trying to put it out of my head and didn't, and kept trying to and just failed at putting it out of my head. It was just sitting right there, and I was pissed. And right before we were about to leave, I went, give me the keys. And I grabbed my father's keys. I went into the house. I walked up those stairs, and one by one, I walked down from the second floor to the first floor. I did it. And I finished, and I was like, yes, I know it was hard. I know I was scared, and I don't give a shit. I did it. And that was a moment in my life where I went, I can do hard things. I can do things that take courage and survive. And that moment changed something fundamental in me, because even if it's really hard, even if it's really challenging, a part of me doesn't care. I'll rise to the challenge, and I know I can. And I think that is something that we all can do to various degrees, depending on where we are in our journey. But we need to, I think, strive for knowledge that we can do hard things, and that we are more capable, more able, more talented, and more skilled than we dream of.
I love that. You have to know where the steps are.
Yeah, but I mean,
but you can take them.
Sure, absolutely, and it took me a while. It took me a good 15 minutes to do it, because I couldn't tell, because there was like there was air. I'm like, what part is the 2x4? What part is the air? And could not tell. And other people, Rich would be able to just like up, down. He doesn't care. It took me a while, but I did it. And that was the point. It wasn't the point to do it fast. It was the point to get it done. And I think that's, again, like I say, writers write, professional writers finish. The point is to get it done. It doesn't matter if it takes you 14 years. The point is to get it done. So there. Okay. Whew. On to the next thing, because otherwise we're going to keep talking about that bizarre little moment in my life. So here's the thing, right? When I look at this chapter and I think about some of the stuff that she says, taking care of God's business means he'll take care of ours, feels super desperate to me, right? I feel like there's a lot of draw or pull to release your own power. And I feel like what I want to think about is not, oh, God's the boss, because she says that, right? She's like, God, it wasn't God who decided not to go to this party that would have introduced you to this filmmaker or whatever. It was you who decided. And I'm like, again, God gets the credit, you get the blame. It really pisses me off. But I feel like returning to that question of, can we have a sense of abundance and feeling worthwhile if we don't have that kind of, quote, you're the boss relationship with a God or with faith or whatever? Can we do it? Is it possible that we hold on to our power while at the same time looking for, inviting, and accepting help where it might come from? What are your thoughts on that? Megan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I have thought a lot about this. I think it is possible to have a sense of abundance without that belief in that kind of a higher power, because to me, abundance in that way really comes from the possibilities you're able to see in the world. They don't necessarily need to come from anywhere else, I think. And unlocking your ability to see that, sure, if you believe in a higher power, if that's consistent with how you want to view the universe, then yeah, sure, they come from God. But I think if you don't see the universe that way, it could just be that these possibilities exist in the universe for no reason, and you can either see them or not. And the more attuned you are to being able to perceive what possibilities are there for you, then the more you'll be able to take advantage of them. And I think that's how I've really come around to thinking about it. And yeah, I would like to know what you guys think. What about you, Alan?
My buddy keeps telling me like, oh my God, are you guys going to be done with the God stuff? So this is my shout out to him. So, but yeah, so but the thing I'm mentioning him before, because he's like, it's like, whatever you want to call it, it's a tool. So if you call it a hammer, it's a hammer. If you call it not a hammer, it's still going to work the same way. And like you just said, you can observe those things. You can observe that energy. And you can just base it purely on yourself. I have access to my powers of observation, my powers of like readiness to like move forward, my power to accept help. It's all your power to acknowledge these things. And it is weird that she's like, God didn't make you not go to that party, but it is good that, that's a weird angle of it. But I think like, yeah, it's just like, you don't have to accept a God or the universe or anyone's help as long as you sort of accept that you can draw on what already exists in the abundance that already exists in the world.
And that to me is flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The flow is a great way. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sergio?
Yeah, I agree that accepting this flow can lead to abundance for sure. And I also agree with Megan that I don't think you exactly need to have I don't think you need exactly to have a faith in a specific thing to achieve it. it's just belief, and even if that's just the belief in yourself and the ones around you or the people you look up to, um, can be enough to provide that energy that allows this abundance. That makes sense.
It makes all sorts of sense, absolutely. And moving forward, I think we've all talked about it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's move on because yeah, enough God stuff. Let's talk about luxury. Let's talk about pampering. Because she talks about pampering yourself as an artist. What does pampering mean to you? Sergio, let's start with you. What is luxury to you? What does pampering mean?
I think pampering or luxury, or pampering more for me, is when you allow yourself to indulge, I guess, and to just be indulgent. And a general pampering, just having a day to yourself, or allowing yourself to eat that ice cream that you probably shouldn't be eating, or to have maybe go to a spa if you wanted to get more, have more of that kind of day. But also as an artist, I think it can be just buying that new paintbrush that you've been thinking about, or just working on that story. And I guess just allowing yourself to be more present in your art, I think will enable you to get that sense of just being more pampered or indulging more, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Megan, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I just totally spaced out for a second. What was the question, sir?
We're talking about what luxury or pampering means.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, it was just suddenly my brain was just totally blank. Yeah. So I think that I have been thinking a lot about this, because in the tasks, when we had to sort of look at our money and figure out where we were spending it, and I saw that so little of my money was going towards anything like fun for me, even though I could afford that. I just decide not to spend it on that, like it doesn't matter. And I think that that's really a journey we all kind of have to go on individually. And I think luxury for me means that I'm making a choice that kind of defies that idea, that I shouldn't spend money on something if it's, just something fun for me. Like maybe I'll get myself a dinner out, or even taking myself to, I don't know, like a show or something. Even that seems totally extravagant to me. And it shouldn't really. I think most normal people like fit things like that into their budget, and they don't have so much of an issue with that I do. So yeah, I think luxury to me means making space for those things and understanding the place those things have in your life, especially as a creative person. I think what the artist dates have shown me is that I need that time really to be a full person, in a way, like to be a full creative person. I need rest for my brain. And I think to be a full human, a lot of times you need to have some sense of luxury and fun that's not, some things that are not connected to work or output, in order to create things that are good and that live up to your potential. You have to have some kind of reward built into that, I think. What about you, Alan?
I love a reward-based system, honestly. No, I've been, I was thinking what luxury means to me, and I think for some reason I keep thinking of these two masseuses down in Ecuador that my mom will hire. They're like a couple, and they'll give like a full massage, the two of them, so you have four hands working on you, and that to me is like really a great luxury, to have that ability to go down there and do that. And I think like I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, I have luxury in my life, but that's a chance where I do have access to that. And they're super, I don't know, they're like the best masseuses I've ever had in my life. They're just like really in tune with you, and it's very nice. But like you, like I find it I came to New York as an actor, and I think I've seen woefully way too many Broadway shows. And I think that's because I got in my head about what I liked as an artist and what it was good, and like worried about definitely the expenses that it has. And but what it means to me now is, I think, like giving myself time to be creative, doing that, and then giving myself time to relax and enjoy that time rather than feel like I haven't done anything. So maybe there's luxury in the sense of accomplishment or having done something, because I'm definitely feeling better about the idea of having to work for money doing something else, because like I've been giving myself time to write and make that a focus, and I feel more capable of doing that. So now I feel less burdened by the idea of having to make money some other way until I prove off a new way to do that, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Back to you.
Back to me.
Validating my sense.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to try and keep these stories short, but I have stories. First of all, to me, pampering and luxury are a couple of things. A great massage, yes, that's one of the things that I love. But I got to tell you, the biggest, I thought about it a lot, and to me, it is when I am not required to be anywhere at any time for any specific thing. So to me, pampering and luxury is freedom to do whatever the hell I want. That is freedom. That is luxury. That is pampering. And I might choose to sit and meditate. I might choose to go ride roller coasters. I might choose to go see a Broadway show, whatever it is. No one's constraining me and telling me what I have to do when. That's pampering. And I, unlike all of you, see as many shows as I possibly can. I have been, I go to shows as often as I can. I that's a huge part of my budget, because the theater to me is life. So I see a lot of shows, and I love it, right? And frankly, I've had enough people die on me recently that I'm only doubling up how many shows I'm seeing, because no, seriously, it's like, you know, someone in the prime of their freaking life dies just at the snap of a fingers. So you might as well enjoy your life. You know, you might as well do the thing that you're afraid to do. You might as well do it. And I have two quick stories. In 1999, I went to Estonia for a NASA workshop. And Estonia is one of the countries that has a lot of amber, just a ton of amber. And amber is really inexpensive there. And as I was shopping around, and I bought a bunch of butter amber, and it was gorgeous, blah, blah, blah. And it was all very inexpensive until I saw this moon goddess carved out of amber, and she was gorgeous. And she was $300. And I went, it's too rich for my blood. And they wouldn't negotiate, and they shouldn't have negotiated. It was gorgeous. But I went, too rich for my blood. I just can't afford it. And 23 years later, I'm still freaking thinking about that moon goddess. And when I did not buy her, and I've tried to find something similar on eBay and everywhere else I've tried, no, I've never found her since. And I realized that, you know what, from now on, if I want it, I freaking do it. I do it, I get it, I buy it, I see it, I try it. If I want it, I do it. Because otherwise, look at me, 23 years later, I'm still going, yeah, I should have bought that figurine, five-inch little figurine. I still think about, I can see it, and didn't buy it. So now if I want it, I go, you know what? I'll figure out the budgeting for it later. And here is the other example. I had an ex-boyfriend whose father worked really hard. He worked his ass off. He worked so hard. He had one of the biggest businesses in the state of Michigan, really ended up being a very wealthy man, had a beautiful wife, great family, blah, blah, blah. And his wife was constantly like, look, I want to travel. I can't take a break. I'm going to retire at 65. We'll go. And she's like, fine, I'll wait. And as soon as he retired, within about a month, he found out that he had this disease that makes you photosensitive to the sun, so he could no longer go outside.
Oh, no.
Okay? And his, Ellen, his wife, what the hell, right? They were so heartbroken that all of these plans that they had to go see the world because he was retired, they could no longer do. So I say, if you want to try it, if you want to do it, if you want to travel to it, then do it. Then figure out a way to make it happen, because it would break my heart in cajillions of pieces if I found out that I didn't go to Cuba because I was waiting until I retired to be able to go, and then travel stopped to Cuba, right? Like, I went to Cuba before travel stopped to Cuba again. And I am so grateful. I made some great friends. I saw things I never would have seen before, never would have otherwise seen, never would have otherwise experienced. And I'm super grateful that I got to do that. So the important thing for me is that if you want to experience it, this isn't a dress rehearsal. This is it. And so if I want to, I do. That's how I look at luxury. That's how I look at pampering. That's how I look at every part of my life. If I want to, and it's not going to hurt anybody, blah, 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 you know that, all of those caveats, I do it. So that's my thought on all of that.
Yeah, that's really great.
That's really beautiful.
Definitely.
I want to capture that energy and like weaponize it.
Weaponize
it. I'm happy to help you do that. But anyway, so yeah, those are my thoughts. We probably could talk and talk and talk, but I know that you all have an evening to get back to. Is there anything else that you want to say about this week before we close up?
Man, I think for me, really, it brought up a whole lot of stuff that I hadn't really, even if I was aware of it or I'd thought about it a little bit, that this chapter really did help me kind of start to put things into context and maybe put the pieces together in a little bit of a different arrangement. So I did, even though we spent a whole lot of time talking about the God thing, I think that this chapter had a lot of value for me yeah.
Very cool. Sergio, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said tonight. Well, not everything, but I love the differences that we bring to this. And thank you, Isolde, for what you were just saying before about just doing it. I think that's really powerful. And it's funny, when Megan said she wanted to capture it, I thought she was saying just put it in a jar for herself. But I love that she said she wanted to weaponize it. That's a much cooler way to use that positivity.
Yeah, she put it in a jar and then put that jar in a phaser.
That's right. Yeah. A grenade.
Yeah. Load it into a cannon.
That's awesome. A bit aggro, but awesome nonetheless. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone for sharing, being so insightful, allowing themselves to be vulnerable, to be raw. And thank you, listeners, for listening. And I can't wait for next week to continue this process with everyone.
Awesome. That's great. Alan, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I like that weaponization of do what you. No, I did think I feel like someone recently was complaining about taking a trip and spending money. It's just like, yeah, do it now. Was that Megan? Actually, I wonder. No, do it while you're young and you can, while you have it, or like, I don't know, like that's a great. What you said was great.
Oh, the solo trip.
Getting spacey.
Yes, that's what it was.
Solo trip.
It wasn't the money.
Oh yeah,
Megan
has
done it before. Yeah. But yeah, she said she will. I believe in it.
No, but yeah.
Yes, I will.
Somebody else was saying that, then they were feeling irresponsible, and I was like, no, now's the time to do it. You have the access, and you're able to do it. Go do it. Why are we waiting till the end of our lives to finally go around doing the things, hoping that we get there? Who knows? We gotta act now, as Isolde says, and I love that. You guys are great. Thank you to the listening audience. Isolde, great to have you back at the helm. And I hope everybody had a pleasant Monday, whatever you did. And happy Tuesday.
And happy Tuesday, right? Yeah, I thank you all three for doing this. This is such an eye-opening experience and heart-opening experience for me, and I thank you for listening to my diatribes, because I know I get on the soapbox and then I'm off to the races. But I do want to say that there are things to think about in this chapter aside from all the God stuff, and I will endeavor to not be to not stumble over the God stuff anymore, because I know it's a personal failing of mine that I cannot get past it. However, one of the things that she talks about in the chapter that I think we need to pay attention to, and it behooves us to pay attention to, is that what you envision isn't always going to be what you can create. And do not judge yourself if what you envision isn't what you create. Sometimes it needs to have a life of its own in order for you to get to the next step, or in order for you to really process what you've done. Right? Sometimes we judge what we've done as not being what we imagined, but that doesn't mean it's any less valid or any less good. So cut yourself some slack. That is my word on this, is cut yourself some slack. You deserve to cut yourself some slack and just live in the abundance of being an amazing and incredible artist. So there you go.
That's beautiful.
All right.
So much
Thank you.
positivity is over
So-
Alan, knocking it out of the park. Megan, you too. I'm loving it.
Wait, I think that's the
You
thing.
too, Sergio.
I think we all bring something unique to this entire process, and that's one of the reasons I think it's really good to do this with a group, because I certainly get caught in my own head a lot. So I'm really grateful to the three of you for keeping me honest. Again, Alan Fessenden, Megan Vasilis,
Thank you.
Sergio Giovanni, I'm so grateful to all of you for participating in this process and in this project, and for being so willing to put yourselves out there. I'm really grateful to all of you for doing this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Isolde.
See, Zelda.
Thanks for having us again, of course.
What a joy, huh? What a joy. All right. If you've enjoyed today's episode, let us know. Drop a review, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, put some stars on the Spotify version of the podcast. Comment in the show notes. You will see a couple of things, a couple of new things. First of all of our contact information is there. You can find us on Instagram. And also, Alan has if you are a New Yorker, especially, Alan's got his TaskRabbit contact information out. He's amazing at what he does. So if you've got stuff that needs to be done, you know who to contact. Until next time, this is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Innovative Mindset Podcast, reminding you, if you want to buy me a cup of coffee, you can do that right from the show notes. And also reminding you to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2021. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, remember to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind.